The next book that I'd like to review is called Reluctant Modernism, American Thought and Culture, 1880 to 1900, by George Cotkin. This book is actually the fourth in the Twain Modern American Thought and Culture series, edited by Lewis Perry and Howard Brick. And it looks at American intellectual history in the 20 years from 1880 to 1900. Cotkin covers this ground adeptly and even-handedly, from the pervasive influence of Darwinism on practically every area of human endeavor of the time to the ambiguous place of the woman in intellectual life. The book has its weak points, which I'll mention on the end, but I would like to talk about the body of it. The first part of the book is the best and offers some of the clearest insights, though Cotkin never really does get to the heart of the matter in attempting to define what modernism actually means to him. He uses the metaphor of a tangled bank, the same one that Darwin used in another context to describe nature. The themes are familiar ones: how our subjects are continually buffeted to and fro between moribund Victorianism and the new, ambiguous, questioning modernism. Cotkin does a really good job of detailing how far-reaching are the ideas of progress often espoused in the guise of Darwinism. Even though the leading liberal religious thinkers of the time, like Henry Ward Beecher, Newman Smith, Octavius Brooks Frothingham, co-opted the idea of progress to create a theology that ministered to the particularly Victorian and not modern worldview. Former orthodoxy started to become laced with aspects of rationalism, but not necessarily for the scientific pretense it provided. In fact, more often than not, this aspect of religious thought devolved into a calming anodyne for the complacent middle class, an attempt to appeal to their fetishization of progress. He covers pragmatism, that fresh American philosophical tradition, very well, including how its professionalization also led to the development of psychology as its own academic discipline. Even in the realm of psychology, the freedom versus determinism debate comes up again, with William Graham Sumner firmly on the side of passively accepting nature's laws, while William James suggests that there is room for human volition. In one chapter, Cotkin does a fine job in detailing the perhaps not surprising extent to which racism dominated the field of academic anthropology and ethnology. Lewis Henry Morgan's work with the Iroquois and John Wesley Powell's involvement in the U.S. Geological Survey are also indicative of the search for parallelism, order, and logic that Cotkin has already tried to show. Naive optimism was not relegated to the middle class, however. As James C. Wellington of Columbian College said, "There is a limitless vista opened, though not an absolutely unlimited one, for the prospective working of better laws, purer justice, wiser economics, richer science, and higher morality." By the end of the century, as the influence of Franz Boas grew, anthropology began to slowly slough off its former assumptions and found that, quote, the contextual understanding of culture was complex and inexact. The second half of the book provides information that is just as interesting, but much more derivative. I was introduced to some new names like Francis Benjamin Johnson and Gertrude Kaisebauer, and the background story that's been told much more effectively elsewhere, their background stories. In the closing chapters, Cotkin touches on the growth of American consumerism and gives a few quick and insightful sketches of people like Stephen Crane, Louis Sullivan, Thorstein Veblen, and Edgar Saltus. For an undergraduate student who is looking for a quick overview of the reigning ideas of the time. This book is perfectly sufficient and pretty good. The first half is worth reading all the way through for the interesting undercurrents of rationalism and progress that Cotkin develops. But the second half should serve mostly as biographic reference material, just stuff that you look up as you happen to need it. It's not nearly as interesting. But you rarely get a short, accessible book on specifically American modernism, and this one really touches on some of the high points.